Hello YouTube, welcome back to Scoped In, the series where we take a closer look at the VCT Pacific area. Sometimes we take a look at overall meta shifts, the overall tournaments, and most of the times we actually take a closer look at the VCT Pacific teams. The series has taken a bit of a break since we had the offseason and a lot of roster changes we wanted to track in a separate series. However, we just had Red Bull Homeground 4 happen last week in Japan, so now we've got some footage we want to take a look at. And most excitingly, we have footage of the new Zeta Division roster. Now, something to note, it was not the full roster that we had at this event. Dep was on a break, so they brought in another player from their academy roster, Kaede and Yatsuka for their duelist roles. However, it was a good debut for their two new youngsters that are joining the starting roster of the main team on Zeta Division. So, let's dive right in. So I want to start by taking a note at the actual roster itself. In case you missed it, Zeta Division announced two new members to join their team, and it's going to be Huron and Uran. Now, you probably haven't heard of these two, right? Huron you might have because he was playing in Challengers for 2023. However, Uran, unless you're really deep into following Zeta Division or the Japanese scene, you probably haven't because he's been on the academy roster for Zeta Division, which hasn't exactly played a lot of official matches, right? They've been doing a lot of scrims and public scrims that are streamed on some of their channels and things like that, but not much else. So two fairly very new players that they're bringing up. Now, Huron used to be part of the old academy roster as well, so there's some history already between both of these two players and the org, and of course the veteran players that are still remaining, such as Laz and Sugar Zero. Now, Yatsuko was playing the Rays, and then they had, let's take a look here, Kaede playing the Jet. So these are two other players that are on their academy roster that they brought up to take, the spot that Dep has left vacant since he's on break. And I thought it was a great chance. I actually want to talk about Kaede a little bit as well, and just overall how promising the future of Zeta Division and perhaps Japanese Valorant looks like. Now, one thing to note, my biggest question, and I think for a lot of people early on, was who's going to play what, right? Because if you look at Huron, he's clearly mostly a Killjoy user, has played some Cypher, has played actually a fair number of Reyna throughout this year, but clearly mostly a Sentinel user. And then Uran, again, not many official matches for him, but pretty much a Viper specialist. And we found out when we were looking at some vlogs from the academy roster coach for Zeta as well, he mentioned that, well, Uran's a Viper specialist, as far as I can tell through automatically translated videos. So the question was, okay, how does this work? Now, last week in my Roster Mania update, I noted, all right, I can see Uran still being a Viper specialist for the most part, right? Double Controller continues to still be quite reliable on most maps. I think you could force it on every map if you wanted, but it's kind of the go-to on a lot of maps still. So Viper still has a very strong position. Zeta could be moving into that shift where the double controller is their default mode, and then they flex around in some other way. All right, that makes sense. And then the question was, well, okay, who's going to play Initiator? And a lot of people thought, okay, well, there's a debate to be had here because there's value in having Laz on the Sentinel role. It allows him to play Chamber whenever he wants, and even when he plays the Killjoy, he could still be the main opper and things like that. That means Huron, one of the newer players, would have to pick up the main Initiator role. And people said, okay, well, would that work out? Do you trust him to do that? Or if Laz is going to go back to kind of being the main IGL, does he take the Initiator mantle? What we did find out is that Laz is going to be the go-to Sentinel, it appears, and Huron's kind of going to be this overall flex, and so is Uran, right? So they've got them both playing a variety of different roles here, if this page wants to load up. So, for instance, on Haven, you see, okay, Uran's playing the Viper, which means Huron's playing the Sky. Laz is still on that Killjoy. And then we look at, things like Ascent. It's going to be both Huron and Uran playing the Initiator, which that's kind of tough, right? For the two newer guys to come in and be the double Initiator, because you play a big role in getting information and continuing to set up for your teammates. However, they make it work. So let's take a look at some of these clips. We're going to bounce around a little bit, but we'll start with the best of three. Now, all of these clips are actually going to be against Cloud9. It just happened to work out that way with the Swiss format into the bracket at Red Bull Homeground 4. So we're not going to see too much variety in their opponents, but just want to take a couple notes. These are, again, very early first impressions, and I just want to talk about what about this gives me hope for Zeta Division. I'm not going to go outright and say, okay, they're now going to contend for top 3 in Pacific. I think that will still take some time. But, you know, what about it is giving me hope here to say, all right, I think this is a team that's exciting to look at. Now, if my taskbar would like to go away here. There we go. So first up, it's Ascent. We talked about it's the double initiator composition. Obviously, that's the go-to on Ascent for every single team. So Uran on the Sova, Kaede on the Jet. Now, we'll talk about Kaede a little bit here as well, and then Huron. Something you want to keep in mind here is think about what Zeta's difficulties used to be. So most notably, something everyone around the world agrees on is Zeta just played way too slow. But when we say way too slow, we don't just mean that they ran down the clock. We mean that they ran down the clock without getting any meaningful information or taking any meaningful actions, right? They were so reactionary to the point that if the opponent didn't make a move, they just waited until 30 seconds, and then they just had to kind of Hail Mary a choice every time, both on attack and defense. So that was a big problem. The other problem was there wasn't as much of a clutch factor across the team, right? I mean, whenever he's on the chamber, sure, Laz was able to do it. And towards the end of the season, I think Depp really got back into that role as well. But the others, not as consistent. Sugar Zero even was relatively quiet throughout this year. And then one other thing I noticed was a big difference is also energy level. So all of these things were, you know, combined really drag you down from being able to fill in the last 2% to rise to the top of professional Valorant. But let's take a look first. So one thing I've noticed right away is you see that Zeta seems to be much more fluid, and they made this change towards the end of the season as well, but they're just much more open about going for trades. So apologies on the quality here. The YouTube stream for Red Bull was having some difficulties, but they're trying to take some early mid control, right? So they're pushing out. You see on the minimap, Kaede has pushed out. Now the counter flash comes out from C9. Kaede re-peaks. He's now in trouble. He dashes back, and immediately in mid, if this quality is going to allow me to take a closer look at this here. Okay, what the little blob you see here, that's Uran Sova. Listen, I don't know how to fix this here. This is how we were watching it live as well. And I can't watch Twitch VODs in Korea, in case you were wondering. So Uran is already prepped to provide support, right? The flash comes out from Zeppa as Cloud9 is trying to take mid control. And then Kaede, first of all, just great re-peek, gets the shot here. He gets the kill onto who was it, Jake. But then he goes back, and right as he hides back, you're going to see on the minimap that we see Oxy go for the peek, right? Trying to catch him off guard. And that's where Uran's just prepared to be able to cover for his teammate. Gets the kill, the Jet goes down there, and then Kaede actually just sprays back through the smoke as well for a second kill. Just a really, really good opening here, and really good early aggression now here as well. Kaide's in trouble. They see that it's a judge, so Kaede is just trying to bait him in because he knows Laz is ready for him behind, right? Standing right outside a tree. So again, just this fluid movement of someone's always going to be there to trade for me. That means I can also be a little bit more aggressive on my peaks and things like that. Now, Kaede, let's talk about him right now since we saw him in the very first clip. He seems very talented. And some people were wondering, like, well, okay, well, maybe he's better than Depp. Maybe you should bring him in. I don't know. Personally, I think Depp's got pretty good firepower still. I think the veterancy is really going to help Zeta Division. However, the good news for Zeta Division is if they continue to just grow Kaede on their academy roster, they've got someone lined up for when they want to make that switch, or they can, you know, loan him out to another team, or, you know, it can be a business asset as well if, you know, he wants to go to another team and they want to go through that process of the contract. But overall, it just seems that they're starting to build up some very promising talent. That's what we saw in Kaide. But again, the communication between him and Yuran, him and Laz, just being able to trust each other, getting ready for the crossfires, getting ready for the trades, which allows them to play a little bit more aggressive like this, especially in the early part of the round, is very impressive. All right, next clip is going to be the very next round. Now, this one, it goes back to a little bit of lurk-heavy gameplay, and this is going to be a big part of ZETA's gameplay overall. But again, it's much more meaningful. It's not reactionary lurks. They're really going into enemy territory. They're trying to catch flanks. They're trying to disrupt information. So we're already down to 124 on the clock. You see Laz is starting to make his move. They know that they've given up B main control, so they're starting to peek into A. They go for the flash. Now Kaide gets traded, but they realize Jake is in wine. So they're just trying to keep him at bay. And while this is happening, because they're setting up for A, Laz has broken the alarm bot, and he's starting to go in. Now this draws the attention of Curry. Thankfully, Laz wins. If he lost that, sure, it would have been trouble. However, the important thing is afterwards, he's still trying to create space, so he makes sure he's watching his flank. Now he's waiting to make sure he can provide a cross for his teammate, and then they are clear and ready to get into the site. Oxy's going to get a nice kill here, but what does that mean? That now means Huron is on the flank here in A. So this is at 40 seconds. Now, ZETA, it's still going to take them some time, and they're still going to plant right around the 20-second mark. But the point being, if you go back here, right, just look at the movement on the look at the timings of the movement around the map. So if we take a look here, at 112 they start their move. Okay, so they're starting to fish for information in A site. They can't get in. Their duelist is dead, so they clear up mid. That should at least draw someone out. Laz is prepared for that. He actually gets the kill. It evens it to a 4v4. He knows people now have to pay attention to him, so he's now blocking them off from the site. The alarm bot doesn't get broken, so he assumes they're watching from mid, and they're waiting for that. However, with no duelists, they want to open up their options, and they're not quite sure if everyone has redistributed from A site, so Huron's now on the move over from A, and he's able to get the kill on the rotation, and that opens it up to really go back to A. Now, while the plant eventually still happens at the 20-second mark, we should note they can do this because they started taking their action before the 1-minute mark, and it's very fluid, right? It's not take action, oh no, our duelist is dead, let's all reset for another 15 seconds and then take the next part, right? It's much more, okay, we're going to start moving, but Laz, we need you to get up in mid. He was going to go there for the lurk anyway, but the duelist died, so then he's like, okay, well, let me create space. And then it's just like, okay, now they're doing something new every 10 seconds, which opens up their possibilities and allows them to get to the end of the round quite successfully. Something I wanted to note here in round 6 is they really started to kind of juggle different defaults here, even on Ascent, right? So Ascent can end up being very stale and very straightforward just because of the layout of the map, but if they've always been kind of focusing over on, you know, waiting on A, waiting for the one-way, and then, you know, trying to peek into B, and then eventually taking rid of the alarm bot and things like that, change things up in round 6. So they go in very early again. It's actually similar to round 3 in terms of tempo, and they're trying to take out the alarm bot right away. Now they wait. Oh, sorry, this is what I wanted to point out. It's because my clip started late. So look at the utility setup here. So smoke goes out over by tree. Another smoke goes out in mid. 0 point goes down here. So again, apologies for the quality here. But attackers 0 point over here. They have a smoke here. They have a smoke in mid. And they have the recon here. So they dump all of their utility to make sure they can cut up the map in this direction, right? They're trying to deny C9 from getting any further information through here, and through here, so that they can get mid control, and they can, you know, if there's a reaction from B, they're ready for it with the turret. Before, sure, they try to get rid of the alarm bot here and there, but they weren't setting up the double smoke, right? They were actually just, sometimes they would just wait to watch only one side. It would just be a smoke on one side and not the other. So they go for a clear double smoke. That indicates that they're going to try to take mid control. It also you know, make sure that the op can't do anything. They throw a fake shadow step there to keep them tied up in A. And then they're droning in deep. Now, this allows them to get up close to the alarm bot. That's going to get broken already at the 120 mark. That draws out the recon bolt to see if it's going to be a pinch on B. So now they know, okay, we have a timing. Now, they're still waiting because the smoke just cleared up from mid. Afterwards, they do slow down just a bit. But what I like about this is you've now made sure that somebody has to be watching mid from some angle because the alarm bot is gone. And that's what's so crucial about Ascent, right? You have to make sure that you figure out how they're watching mid because you're going to want to watch mid one way or another. And then you're waiting to see, okay, do they push out again? You know, if is anything else going to get used early on in mid? Because if not, we can reposition and then kind of take our pick. You're making sure you're still watching for a push out. No one's pushing out from anywhere. So they wait until the 1 minute. It does start to get a little bit slow, but they're now creeping up. Now, again, these are big changes. Literally moving in sync, right? So they're bringing up the line here. Before, the line was kind of like this way for Zeta, and then now they've brought it up to this point. And now, other than, you know, the Omen, who can't immediately teleport without his ultimate, they're kind of ready to swing one way or the other. Right on a dime. So you see the smoke coming out over onto A short potentially. Yeah, and they're going to just draw that out. They're going to throw the paranoia. And now the movement happens on B. This is the timing I want to talk about. Okay, it's at the 40-second mark. Much earlier than usual. It's nothing to write home about, but for Zeta, it is kind of crazy. And the important part here is that they're all waiting to set up. And something you'll notice in the UI is Sugar Zero currently has one smoke. He's waiting on cooldown for the refresh to come up. And he's going to use his smoke right on time that the second one refills so that he's not going to, you know, have to wait around. So that's what they're waiting on, is the timing on the refill for the smoke. And you'll just see that the UI doesn't refresh there. It just shows that he still has one left. He's going to paranoia and whine to make sure that they're focused on A. And then that calls out the reactionary smoke from here. He already has a second smoke ready to go into B. And that timing is good because they're already in market because Coyote was set up for it. And then they are able to start to get into sight. They use the Hunter's Fury to help push out Boathouse. Now Vanity does get, you know, a little bit here. He does get one kill, but there's already way too many members inside. And they've now taken full control of the site. I believe Oxy gets this kill. Oh, no, he doesn't even get that kill. So, just again, I mean, sure, again, the spike isn't planted until the last 10 seconds because it's dropped, right? And even if it wasn't, it would have been planted at the 10-second mark. So, it is... The eventual ending of the round is still at a very late timing. But what I want to say is they're much more certain about what they want to do because of this setup. In the past, what would have happened is Zeta wouldn't have broken the alarm bot. They'd be waiting to break it now. So they would be working on a 50-50 guess every time of, well, we've broken it. Hopefully they're not watching the cross, and hopefully we don't die to that, right? That's what they used to work with. But they break it early. They wait to see if there's any reaction. There isn't. So you assume it's either this angle that Killjoy is holding or this angle from KO. In this case, it's both. But then to make sure that this one is opened up, what they do is they set up for this fake on A, right? And to really sell it, they send one smoke, they send a flash drive, and they send the paranoia and wine, which means Jake can't give you information on how many people are coming in because he has no sound. So all of this is thought very well through. And Kaede starts moving after the paranoia's gone through because that's what's going to draw the reaction. They see the 0 point coming out, so they assume there's more support happening in A, and then they're making it through. They put up their cloud burst to make sure they're not caught on the cross, and they're ready to go. Well, now I'm looking at it. That smoke isn't in the best position. There's a bit of a gap. But either way, really good timing play here from Zeta. Still a bit slower than a lot of teams, but much better because they have more information this time around. Jumping into round 9. Now, this is just a case of Zeta gets or loses the first death, and then they actually recover off of it a lot better than they have in the past. So they're set up heavily on B. Looks like they're ready to, you know, kind of go for a rush if they're allowed to. They're just going to wait to see if there's any pushes. Now, they get the 0 point onto the Killjoy. Unfortunately, it doesn't really do much for them because they're not quite sure if it's close. Now, I believe this is around where the double lockdown happens. So I'm not quite sure if this was intentional, if they just meant to use it to draw out the double lockdown. But either way, they're going to be able to get the lockdown. Now, Kaede has already died, right? So what happens here is Kaede's trying to push up. I believe he gets tagged. And then he just gets absolutely spammed through the wall. That means, you know, the lockdown has to be just used as a counter to each other. You can't work off of it. You can't try to get into it. And now you're just going to have to sit there and wait. And old Zeta, what they would have done is after that death, they wait for the lockdown. And they'd be like, well, I guess we wait until 30 seconds and then we go back B. But here, what they've already set up, because they have from the shadows for Sugar Zero, they know that they haven't quite pushed out all the way from A main, right? I mean, he's not able to see the Omen over there, you know, for C9. He can't see Jake. But he's making sure that, okay, there's no fast push yet. We can work with it because it's still a little over a minute, and they're able to reposition. So now that they don't have their duelists, they're down to a 4v5. What do? Let's try to regain control. So Sugar Zero helps smoke out mid. They can start to regain control of mid. They know they haven't broken the alarm bot yet, so they send in the smoke again now that they've gotten into the yard here. They can have someone watching tree. They can have Laz push up. Okay, Sugar Zero just checks for some members. Okay, he says we've lost A main control. So now you have to make sure that you have full mid control. So the main force is all staying together while Sugar Zero is still trying to buy time. Now, he still dies, so a little unfortunate. But they've now disrupted mid where not the entire team of Cloud9 is going to be able to group together. And it's going to be a great swing out from Laz. They actually split really perfectly. Laz actually ends up getting that kill, but a really good split there as well, even after the paranoia. And then they just continue to pile through as a three-man squad. And if you take a look here, if we can pause it and go back, right, they're always working as three. They were as three in mid. Now, because Sugar Zero dies, Laz feels the pressure a little bit. He's going to take the first swing on his own, but he waits until his teammates are there. So even if he had died, Huron, look at the tempo that Huron swings out on. Laz swings out. If Laz had died, Huron's right there again. They dodge the paranoia, so if Laz dies, they're to peek back out again. And then even going into the site, they have one guy spamming, and then they have two splitting left and right. Really good adaptation to the fact that they don't have a duelist. And it's not just Laz go kill. I mean, Laz did go kill, but it's the idea that he always had backup, which in some ways allows Laz to peek a lot more confidently. Then they're able to get the plant. Again, you know, overall timing wise, it still gets a little late, but I'm okay with rounds ending late. I'm okay with rounds ending late. What I'm not okay with is rounds ending late where you have no information. Now, Huron not quite realizing that he can be seen there, but Laz with a great swing out just knows that it's going to be a timing that he has, and then Curry's really low, and he's able to get the kill with the nanoswarm. So this is a good combination of you lost the first death, it was your duelist, so you regain control of mid, and then Sugar Zero dies, so now you do have to pick a 50-50, but then you say, okay, well, let's try to win. So let's always swing out together, let's swing out in opposite directions, and then Laz also with the clutch factor. Round 10 is one where we're going to see a little bit better use of time. So right off the bat, they actually use the drone. They send out the early smoke again, so they're just trying to disrupt everything they can. He sees the alarm bot, and at 120, Kaede is pushed into enemy territory, right? And he's just trying to see if anyone reacts to the alarm bot being broken. He actually just barely doesn't get spotted. But okay, so that means at 1 minute, they've already taken, you know, relative control of mid. They know that they've drawn at least one person's attention to mid, and things have been a little bit scattered here for C9. Now, they're, again, still waiting to see if anyone pushes out of A main. It's not going to see all the way through there. He's just watching to see if anyone peeks out. They're still keeping an eye on tree. And at 50 seconds, they see that the 0 point's checking for A short. And they say, okay, so they're still kind of focused on A. They think it's A because, well, I mean, we haven't gone into B, and they haven't peeked into market just yet. So then they throw in this far flash at 40 seconds to keep them at bay, and then the smokes come out, and then they should have a relatively easy time. They still had their 0 point. They know that there's nobody in sight. All he has to do is check boathouse. He's going to be able to go in there. The site is clear. They're making sure they're not getting spammed. They're just taking it real slow. Vanity eventually does get the kill, I believe, onto Kaede here. Great shot right as the smoke clears. But overall, better use of their time in the fact that they're able to get better information. And then the post plant. Oh, I missed the timing on that, so let me rewind just a bit. So after the plant goes down, they realize, okay, Kaede's not there. We don't have a great position, right? We're holding outside of B main. This quality is just getting worse and worse. We're holding outside of B main, but we don't really have room anywhere else. So first they send Sugar Zero. They send Sugar Zero on a From the Shadows. However, it's somewhat predictable, right? It's somewhat predictable. You assume it's either going to be here or like here or here, right? Because you're not hearing it here and you're not hearing it here. Okay, so it's very likely. You have mid control as well. So C9 can kind of predict that the From the Shadows is coming here. But as soon as the spike gets planted, Uran is already on the run. Okay, so instead of saying, all right, send the Omen out and buy time, which I think old Zeta would have done, they would have just been like, all right, just like distract them for as long as possible, try to hold off as 3 in the site. They say, empty the site. All right, send the Omen out, try to get information. He does get killed immediately, but then, okay, so Uran says, okay, I have to make the run for it, but amidst all the utility being used, C9 has no idea that Uran is here, and he gets 1 kill. He eventually dies. But that causes enough chaos where C9 can't actually get the timing onto Laz. Laz has an amazing swivel and gets a double kill alongside Huron to be able to clean up the round. Moving on to round 11. This is one where they actually just... Uran uses his Hunter's Fury aggressively, right? It's just a quick call to say, okay, this is what we're going to use to get into the site. So once again, Shock Dart sent out early on just to see if he can destroy the alarm bot. Now... it's not set up, so it's not going to get destroyed, but they set up the smoke afterwards. And again, past Zeta would have said, all right, we sent the shock dart. It's probably, the alarm bot's probably dead, and we can probably move into A. Zeta's no longer working off of probability, right? They sent the shock dart out, and then they smoke off mid. They're going to smoke it off here, and they set up Kaede to peek off of it, and he's ready for it. And you still have people to go for the trade as well. Now, Curry gets away with a free kill, but, you know, still a good setup from Zeta and just a better shot from Curry. Now, afterwards, they say, okay, we don't have a duelist. Sugar Zero realizes he's being pushed out. The paranoia chases him even further, so they counter paranoia over there. And they're just pushing into A. They push out Tree. They say, okay, we need C9 to just back off. So you use the drone again to just put some pressure over in mid. You realize, okay, nobody's watching it just yet. And Uran spots him. The Laz is ready for the trade. And afterwards, just the shock bolt still to push him back. 2 members still get caught in A. And now Zeta has already made up their mind. They're going to A. Uran gets into safety range. And they say, okay, without a duelist, this is what we do. We make sure there's no crossfire. We make sure they can't try to sneak in and catch us. I mean, Jake still tries his best to do so. But, you know, while the Hunter's Fury doesn't get any kills, I think the fact that Zeta's willing to use that, right? The fact that they're willing to use it to get into the site, to get the plant against an eco, just tells me that they're learning that they need to play to win instead of playing to not lose. Round 19. I believe this is just a note on the better adaptations on their defensive setup. So it's going to be a bunch of Sheriffs, 1 Vandal on Kaede. Uran's just trying to get a cheeky kill here. Not going to be able to find it, but Oxy takes too long, and Laz is going to be able to counter that. Okay, so immediately, as we see the jet rushing in, everybody exits A, right? They're all starting to pile back forward, and they make sure that they're sticking, you know, with the Vandal so that someone else can pick it up if Kaede dies. But after Laz gets the kill, he realizes, okay, there hasn't been other utility, and no one else has actually made it through, which they should have, because we don't have anybody else you know, watching the crossfires. So that's a little weird. So before they commit even harder, you have Sugar Zero turning right back, and so does Kaede, and so does Huron. And that's what I want to talk about, right? And they're on an eco, and instead of saying, okay, well, now we might as well just stick like 1, 1, 2 or 1, 2 and 2. They say, okay, let's still commit to A. If we lose B, we lose B. Eventually, because there's no rush on A either, they send Hero on to watch mid, and that's going to start to pay off here in a little bit, because they say, okay, still nobody in mid, let's just ditch mid. They get a double ping on the 0 point, so they say, okay, ditch mid, right? Watch for market, and then you watch for that. We're holding tree, and now they've shifted to this position. So there's a couple steps to what they did here, right? You see the jet entry, so then everyone moves out. So initially they ditch A, and this is the area they're covering, right? This is the area that Zeta's covering. And then they say, no more movement. So they go back, right? So they have a little bit of B control, but otherwise, this is what they're covering, right? They don't know... Sorry, I scratched out the wrong part of the map on that previous one, but they ditch mid entirely. They say, we don't know what's going on, that's fine. Then, just as he's crossing, Huron checks for mid. He sees nobody there. So then they went back to a 2 and 2, and they say ditch mid. This is important to understand, because if you're lower on numbers, or if you're on a 3-site map, you cannot cover everything. You just can't, right? I mean, okay, sometimes you can if you have really, really good Cypher and like Viper setups. Okay, you can do that, or Killjoy setups. You can try to get away with it, which is why Killjoy's so good on Haven. But otherwise, you're gonna have to just sacrifice a part of the map and accept it, as long as you keep in mind that you've given that area up for free. So they're aware that they gave it up for free, so initially Huron was watching for that. They get the double ping over on B, and so then after that, you say, okay, chances are it's going to be B. So then Kaede comes back, he's now watching mid, and you just have Sugar Zero for a cheeky shot here, or just to listen to sound here, and otherwise, you've now emptied A. So Zeta understands we cannot, on what started as a eco, right, or a hero vandal round, and we're down a member, or we were down a member, we cannot spread out and take care of everything. We have to just ditch it. Otherwise, we won't win. Otherwise, we only have like a 30% chance of winning on each part of the map, whereas now you have like a 60-60 and then a 10%. But then, right, they see no sound coming from A, so immediately, well, Sugar Zero with a great shot as well, but immediately the two members shift back to A. So just really quick decisions here from Zeta. The difference here from old Zeta used to bounce back and forth too, especially on ecos, but old Zeta, all three would have kept going here and then coming back. But this time, they leave Sugar Zero planted, and they have very clear ideas on, okay, well, one person's watching mid, one person's helping watch the site. And then we come back. Okay, on that in the first time they returned to A, we had Kaede coming in from heaven, and then you had Hero Run supporting tree. And then they went back. You watch mid, you watch B site. And now, well, I mean, this works because Sugar Zero got the kill. But here's the point. If Sugar Zero had died here, the round is lost anyway. It doesn't matter if you had just Kaede here. He would have had to do an amazing Hero Miracle round anyway to get the round win. Now that Sugar Zero's got the kill, he's bought you time to reset. And, I mean, you kind of just have to do that when you're behind, right? When you're on your back foot. So Laz is checking for any sort of mid setup. Still no further guns here. But they're going to start to pick up a couple more here. So Kaide's going to go for the Phantom, gives the Vandal over to his teammate. They have been null commanded, but then they 0 point. Kaede gets a nice peek early, and that distracts them from Sugar Zero, who's dropping. And Vanity realizes, okay, I don't have time to go for my Interest Fury. And eventually it's going to be Zeta who takes the round. But again, it's these small changes in the logic that they have of their movement. The movement might seem the same, but the reasoning is very different. Now let's take a look at Bind. Bind goes terribly wrong for Zeta. I believe it ends in a 13-2. And part of it is, I mean, C9, they played really well with this, with the Yoru comboxies. Yoru doing a lot of work the multiple times we've seen it. But Zeta also falls into a little bit of their old habits here. So let's take a look at round one. I think this one, Huron gets a nice kill through the smoke. But I think we start to see a little bit of the old Zeta come back out. So they push out the Yoru. All right, they've shoved him back. They say, okay, we have now control up to Garden. Meanwhile, Laz is watching showers. Now, Laz will get that kill in shower. So that opens it up. Now, here's the thing. You saw minimum 2 people. Now, you don't know... I don't think they caught sight of the Yoru falling back because of the toxic screen. But you saw minimum 2 people on B. You took out a free kill in showers. And you saw no reaction coming out to Laz. That's a lot of information for Zeta. They don't have to rush. They don't have to rush either. I mean, you know, they shouldn't just like blindly teleport into A. That could spell trouble. But the thing is that happens and they just chill. They're like, all right, well, does this happen or not? Now, Uran's actually going to get a really cheeky kill here. And Curry was worried that they'd be hiding in the corner here. So the timing favors Uran because Curry was facing the other way. But, you know, even after that... Oh, this is the kill from Huron. Even after that, it takes him a little bit. And if Huron hadn't gotten this kill, I mean, I think it still would have felt like a really slow round. Now, Huron gets a great kill here because they know that he's here. If you listen carefully, I'll bring up the sound. He spams through the smoke, and then he hears the guiding light, and he just taps again.
Well, Curry thought he was going to come through the wall, and he didn't.
It looked like he was a little bit lost in the sauce, but Vanity...
I mean, that's just a timing read there from Huron. But then they rotate back. Okay, so this is... At this point, okay? At this point, it was going to be a 3v2 or a 3v1. And I get it. I mean, but here's the thing. You don't know if they're on A either. Zeta's working off of the assumption, okay, because we made so much noise coming into B, like, at least one person probably still has rotated back from A if they were at A. So the assumption works out, but... Like, if you're already making your move into B, and Laz is just waiting to see if there's anyone flanking, I mean, I think you kind of trust your team to go in for the kill, right? Now, in this round, it works out, and we see why it works, right? Because, okay, their gamble works, but it's not clear information. It's a bet. It's a bet that you've drawn attention, and it's a bet that you're going to be able to overpower. Now, they're still very careful about clearing out showers with the guiding light. That's what allows them to not get double killed. And thankfully, Laz is here to provide support. But now they're like, okay, well, there was Brimstone here. And then Yatsuka's like, hey, guys, no one in backside. And again, Zeta's like, well, I guess we kind of just wait. And if someone peeks out, we get the kill. And if not, we'll have to decide what to do afterwards. So they start to pigeonhole themselves into this flip-flopping. And so, okay, Yatsuka clears sight, because the idea here seems to be, okay, let's rotate back. However, they're so scared that Brim could have come here, or another member could have come here, right? That they have to walk all the way around at 30 seconds. Now Yatsuka hears someone coming over to B, he gets the kill, and now they say, okay, well, it was the Brim, right? Like, he was somewhere in A, so we can make the run, but it's like... The timing is so dicey. Now, props to Yatsuka here. He realizes if he dies, it's over. If he dies, it's over, because if the spike gets dropped on the jump in, it's just absolutely over. So he just has to buy time until the spike plant happens. Then his teammates are here for the crossfire. So props to Yatsuka. But it's just moments like these. If it works out... It works out this time. It works out this time because C9 didn't want to put all their eggs in one basket once they were down 2 people. But in a rifle round, things could have gone very differently, is my point, right? And it's just one of those things of like, well, what if Jake peeked out and got another kill on A, right? What if the spike was dropped? There's just so many things, and they're just working off of these bets. Like, we probably drew someone over to B, so let's probably teleport to A. And then they say, oh, well, one died here. So what if now there's 2 people in A? And then they start to get in their own heads. So I think the habits are still there just a little bit, and hopefully we see that change. Now, the only thing I'll give in favor of Zeta is it was a pistol round, so obviously they have less utility to work with, right? To get, continue to have information in the middle of the map. So, a little bit of a caveat there. Round 2, and, maybe this is just a bind problem, but they go into classic slow Zeta. Okay, so I like this, right? You're on your anti-eco, you dodge the guiding light, you're waiting to see if they push out. You're waiting to see if they push out from here. You're waiting to see if they push out from here. You're waiting to see if they push out from here. Okay, I get it. down to like 120. Totally cool. Totally cool. All right, timing's good here. Now they use an early Trailblazer to start to push up into Garden, and you catch sight of Curry. Okay, and you get tagged a little bit. You tag him back as well, but they say, all right, well, we used the Trailblazer, so you got to make the Trailblazer count. You have to gain something from it. So you're trying to gain control of an area so that the credit, investment is worth it. All right, great. It's not bad up to this point. You get the orb, great. You're at a minute now. Now, think about this. You have the stronger weaponry. You've noted one person in B. No one else in Garden. So not like a forward stack. You took the orb. If you, in theory, group as 5, go in and get information. You still have another guiding light. You should be able to break through, right? But what this does is it gives C9 time to reposition. So Curry can reposition. They still have Crossfire set up everywhere. They're still checking for information here. They're able to use their own guiding light to be able to check that you're still in B. So they say, okay, they're still in B. So Curry's waiting for that shot. Now you're waiting for Uren to regroup as well, because he was watching B short, right, over in Hookah. Laz is still watching to see if there's a flank, which this is the part I don't get. At this point, what flank are you waiting for? I mean, yeah, I get that your trademark still isn't global, but I mean, if anything, just recall it and like watch from here or something, right? Get ready for some movement over by B short. I guess you're watching for a teleport flank, I guess? But whether you get the kill there or here, like, would it matter? In my opinion, no. Now, thankfully, Huron gets the opening kill, so they're going to be able to get in, right? They're able to smoke out. They realize what positions they haven't taken. Yatsuka does, a nice quick clear of the site. But, like, Laz is still watching for a lurk. Now, I get it. You don't have a weapon. He has a sheriff, so he's not losing anything if he gets picked off. And thankfully, he gets the kill. But just the idea is that, why did it have to take so long? Why did it have to wait until the last 20 seconds for the spike to get planted? And for you to actually get control of a site. Not checking Hookah is fine, right? Because you're trying to avoid short, close quarters combat. I get it, right? Not going for these areas is fine. My only question is you had someone watching this the entire time. Laz could have very well, reset this. And if anything, recalling that might have drawn more attention. I guess it could have drawn more attention to the rotate as well. But it's just something about that timing just feels like they're just waiting to see if C9 does something. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter for this round because C9 had to commit. They were on an eco, they had to commit. But again, my point is these are habits that ZETA used to have on buy round versus buy round, at which point their opponents do get to reset. They get to fill up their cooldowns on certain abilities. And that used to really bite ZETA in the back. So hopefully this is, I mean, if this is strictly for ecos, then I get it, right? And what we'll see is it works out in the next round as well. They do a little bit of macro play here. So hopefully that's what it is. But it's just PTSD about like, oh no, here they go again, like not doing anything for another 40 seconds. So I just wanted to point that out. So here's a small reason that previous round works out. Because in this round, in round 3, they're going to speed things up. Now, they do lose. But they're all set up here. No one's watching A. They just say, okay, now that we're on our bonus, we're going to have to go for a quick run, right? We're just going to have to run for it. They realize it's the decoy. Cannot get the kill onto Oxy, but they say, okay, well, it's been started, so let's jump in. Now, unfortunately, they all get toxic screened and they get completely wrecked. But the idea of, okay, we spent so much time on our, anti-eco. Now we're going to bring up the tempo on our bonus. The macro idea, I get it. If they apply this in other buy rounds, it can be very valuable. This round, round 6, is an interesting one. Now, things go very horribly here for ZETA because Oxy, I didn't mean to, like, completely not watch Oxy's great play here, but we'll watch it. Great spade control. The spray transfer over onto Laz, gets the double kill. And then eventually everything goes poorly. You know, they're able to clear out Oxy, but they're not going to be able to enter the site. Vanity with a nice double, and Uran answers back, and he gets his own double, and he hears the teleport coming in from A. So he teleports straight to A himself, and he says, okay, this is my best chance. He's got the Viper's Pit. He uses it immediately, and it comes into bats just a little bit. So he's set up. Now he plants to spike right outside of the pit. I'm not sure if entirely intentional, but he's able to. And then he immediately rotates over into lamps. And he dodges the showstopper as well. He's going to lose this 1v1, right? Because of the tap and because of where he planted, he thinks it's going to be the swing out from here. If we are able to go back here. He thinks it's going to be a swing around the triple box, so unfortunately he won't win. But my point is instead of setting up the pit and being like, all right, we're just gonna like chill here, even though they have showstopper, let's just hope, you know, and it doesn't happen. He goes for a Hail Mary play, because that's what you have to do in these situations, right? You're the paint shell coming in, you're like, okay, well that's gone. You're the showstopper being used, you're like, okay, this is a good moment for me. Even though he loses the 1v1, what I like to see is that, okay, this new player who has not had any tier 1 experience nor challengers experience is willing to go for these Hail Mary plays when he has to. If he just gets more experience, these are moments that could lead to really good clutches. So this is a nice moment where they're going to have a great reaction to the Euro Ultimate. It still results in a loss, but watch what happens. Oxy's going to start to try to get information here with his dimensional drift, and Yatsuka realizes they're here. Sugar Zero realizes he's been spotted too, so immediately as the Euro ults, Yatsuka says, I'm going in. Right? He's like, Yatsuka's like, okay, well, I've been spotted. Sugar Zero's not spotted, so you know that it's from the site. So instead of waiting for Yoru to set up for some crazy double kill, or for someone to try to peek out off of him, Yatsuka just says, let's deny that information. I'm going to go in, we're going to paint shell, I'll blast back into the site, and I'll clear sight for you. Unfortunately, Sugar Zero loses here. He had a chance to try to win, but they sent out the Seekers as well. Now, Oxy plays Yoru very well, and is able to gate crash back into the site and help defend it. But the idea from ZETA, instead of, you know, old ZETA, in my opinion, what would have happened is they would have said, whoa, 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 back out, the Euro's coming, and then, you know, you would have had Huron try to back out to help as well. And, you know, maybe you get the kill, but then you wasted more time, or you get, like, double, triple killed. So, more proactive choices here from ZETA. I think it's worth praising. Now let's move into Haven, which was the very first match in that ZETA division played. In fact, against Cloud9 as well. Now, this was during the Swiss stage, so it was a best of one. But right off the bat, we're going to see Kaede get a great, insane triple kill here. So, what happens is, you've given up C-Site, right? You've already lost last, and Kaede gets a kill. He's activated the Tailwind, and he dashes in right before the spike gets planted, and he's able to refresh the Tailwind, and he boots it up right away again. Right, so he had it warmed up. He doesn't dash in yet, and then once he's ready to dash in, he gets in, and immediately activates it again, dashes away, gets a third kill. Incredible. He actually gets a triple kill on the second half of this map as well, on the second half pistol round as well. Really good split-second decision-making. Pretty darn good aim. And, again, very proactive. If this is the type of talent that they're starting to grow on the ZETA Division Academy team, very promising future for not just them, but for the overall Japanese scene, right? Because maybe ZETA Division doesn't feel a need to replace their players, and other teams are able to look at this talent and say, hey, we want a shot at working with that player. So, I think that's very promising. And for Kaede, also a player who hasn't had any tier 1 experience, to come on the stage on his very first round and play like that, have that type of decision making, very, very good. Also, the teammates with good cover. Taking a look at round 4. So, right off the bat, they send in the Guiding Light, and they've set up Kaede to push up A main. He actually pushes up very quickly, and that allows Huron to move into A link, and everyone to shift over their weight to C. Now, Kaede's waiting. He's going to hear the Trailblazers, so he breaks it, tries to go for a kill on the peak. Not going to get it, but as soon as he has to run away, you now see the entire weight shift back towards A, right? And then they empty B just for that. During that time, Laz was waiting on the high tide to try to find an angle. He doesn't get it, so he moves back into his turret. Now, they understand that they've given up on B, so they sent in this counter cascade to allow Kaede to kind of set up for a little spot in Cubby. Not going to happen. But now they know their mission is to just protect Link, both on A and C, because they've given up B site. And they're able to pinch immediately. And they even had someone coming out from Garage. I mean, Curry still gets that kill incredibly well. But just look at the movement here. Is that they've shifted their weight here. They shifted their weight here. They've given up the site. So then they just fill A-Link and C-Link. C-Link includes Garage. They're able to protect it. And Huron with a good double kill. Working with his teammates on the peaks here off of the Cascade. We missed the first kill, but we'll catch that again. I don't think it actually shows up on camera. But yeah, he gets the first... Oh, actually, yeah, it's the wide swing out. And then he's able to get it off of the Cascade. Another high tide. And then Uren to try to get the flank. Now, Uren doesn't get the kill, but at the end of the day, the spike is stranded, and Zeta with some good movement. Some very, very quick reactions, but not overreactions, right? Like in the past, you might have seen like 4 people move over to A. But here it's just like, okay, like listen, like B still has the alarm button and the nanoswarm. So we just kind of, you know, if the harbor moves here, the sky moves here. If the sky moves back, the harbor moves back. And then they say, okay, well, let's not like have just one person watching B in a risky manner because it sounds like it's coming A. So first they shift over to A and they say, okay, that means we've given up B control. So just buy time with the alarm button and the nanoswarm. Make sure we don't lose these areas so that they are stuck in B and we can always pressure to come in at 3 angles. And it works out. Ooh, this is a nice one. Round 6. Nice high tide from Sugar Zero. Nothing too crazy, and something in the future that you probably can expect. But look at this high tide, right? It blocks off Garage, and it just looks like it's meant to just slow you down from getting into sight. But it creates this small little pocket that they have to be slowed to get into, and allows Uran to get a double kill with his Sheriff. Just wanted to point that out, but that does lead to the round win, so there is that. Look at the minimap already. Look at Uran's position. He's revving his engine. They have the Killjoy on A. This is already planned out. You know, you've got the turret on B as well, but you got the alarm bot. You're just trying to buy time on A. You've got the operator watching for a C peak. Allows Uran to push up to Cubby. And they are now able to really focus their efforts on A. Now, they heard the utility coming in from A, so they're just here to buy time with the high tide. You have the op just to check for Garage. So Kaede's just kind of clearing angle by angle because you still have utility to buy time here. Great kill from Sugar Zero to deny the entry. And he's holding a close angle. Now they know, okay, they have nowhere to go in A. Now, a little bit of a questionable move here. But again, I mean, hey, I'll take anything if Zeta's being more proactive. So I get the idea, right? A deep guiding light alongside the Reckoning that forces them to be stunned. Unfortunately, Huron gets killed and they can't actually get that. But the idea here being, okay, Kaede was already here to support, so you've got 2 people, and Uran is so fast. Uran is so fast. They don't realize that he could already be in A short, right? But that's because he started from like here. No, they have nobody watching A short. They think they're safe and ready to go. And then a nice jump out from Kaede as well. And it's things like this that I think are worth mentioning here. Off of the cove, Kaede jumps out and then he updrafts to make sure he's the one that's dragging away the crosshair. Because it's so close range, if they just walked out, they could have very easily been double killed. And he understands that. So he's just drawing away the attention. And then Sugar Zero gets the kill. Eventually Sugar Zero wins this round, so it's a nice 1v1 clutch. Great heroic attempt from Curry, all props to him. But the fact that Zeta Division was willing to set this up, set this far push out, again, nothing crazy new, but Zeta used to not play like this. Zeta used to sit inside and wait for information. Now they're starting to get information, and that's the big difference. This is just a round that showcased that, okay, the overall firepower on Zeta Division has definitely increased, right? The raw aim has increased here for Zeta Division. So we'll just let the round play out. As you can see, they are on 4 Sheriffs and a Vandal. Buying time with the high tide. I forget how this has happened. There were a couple good Sheriff rounds from Zeta Division, so I'm not quite sure how this one panned out. But they're using the cascade to continue to buy time on A, and they're starting to push out because they've now decided they're going to focus their weight on A. And they do this on ecos. They just didn't really do this well on buy rounds in the past, but they're starting to be a little different here. A lot of utility being used on garage, so Laz just says, okay, let me make sure we're holding on to back sight. Vanity, meanwhile, opens up A. He gets the push on A and says, all right, here we go. We're going to start to push in. Kaide's just hiding in the smoke. Just trying to buy time. Nice swing out. Vanity continues to wreak havoc. But already it's 3 kills, right? And then Laz with a nice clutch. So, overall, I mean, first of all, I don't think this was caught on screen. But Uren gets the kill from long range. Headshot onto Jake. That means no smokes for C9. And then while it was a little risky, or a little messy rather, Kaide eventually gets the kill onto the Killjoy, bouncing back and forth. And meanwhile, Uren had gotten another kill coming into the site as well onto Oxy. And we missed the kills from Uren, which would have been nice if we were able to see it live, because I think those were the impact ones, right? Taking out the smokes and then taking out the jet to clear out back sight. But at the end of the day, the fact that they can even the playing field with the Sheriffs gives them a lot more options to climb back. Like, if you can get thrifties, you can get the lead, keep the lead, get the upset, get the comeback, things like that, right? And then you have Laz left, who we know has clutch power. We're nearing the end of our clips here, and here's another clip that showcases just really good trading back and forth, really good firefights from Zeta, a lot more improvement. And this is where they used to struggle, right? Back when it was Crow and 10 as part of the roster, it just seemed like either someone had their utility out, or they weren't really, not all of them were on the same confidence level that we're going to win fights, but at this event, it looked like they always believed they were able to win fights. So keep an eye on C site. Obviously, the camera is going to continue to show us. So first of all, you have the baiting jump peek here from Uran, setting up for Kaede. It's actually going to work out because they don't check for this right away. You see the fault line, and Oxy is just focused on trying to clear the site. Kaede gets flashed, and he dashes back into the wall, and immediately Laz is here from garage to get the crossfire. And then immediately Uran is checking garage after that as well. I mean, it goes by quickly in the blink of an eye, but as soon as the fight happens, Laz is already on his way. He goes for the crossfire. Laz gets a double kill. Kaede then swings back out to help make sure they get a crossfire down C long. Uran goes to check for garage. Sugar Zero's there behind him as well. Very quick reactions. And clearly, we started to see this during LCQ when Zeta confirmed that they've moved away from like a singular IGLing style, right? They've become much more fluid, a little bit, alike PRX. And I think that's what's continuing to happen here. And if they can have their rookies communicate this much and work with them, whether it's verbally or just mentally in that clip, that's very promising. That's how you overcome these situations. All right. So another clip where they have a new default. Again, it's going to be the A site set up here for Killjoy. So a bit of a change here, right? And then but this time you have 2 members on A, so you just have the jet watching garage. Nobody is watching B. All right, this is the last round of the half as well. So they send out a cascade to make sure they can secure this, that ult orb, right? Because Laz was 1 point away, and just see how much impact that lockdown has later in this round. So that's why they had 3 people, because they want to absolutely ensure that Laz can get the lockdown. Now they have retake power. They can do whatever they so wish. They're going to try to just buy time on B, because this high tide has generally been quite respected. So they're using that to buy time, and then that allows them to set up here from A-Link to watch into B. They're going to push back out with the Trailblazer a little bit earlier than maybe sometimes you would want to use it. But at the end of the day, they want to use it before the high tide goes down. Now, Kaede tries to spray through. He gets targeted because of his tracers, and he gets taken out. So that means now they have to shift their weight a little bit. And they're back to being a bit too spread out. But in this situation, they didn't have much of a choice because of the timing. With the Seekers coming out, Laz has now repositioned And he's trying to figure out what to do. He says, okay, it's lockdown time. I just need to make sure I hold on to the site. We don't want to go for a 4v5 retake because they have their own lockdown as well. And that means the High Tide comes back off of cooldown, gives him an angle where he can get a double kill. And now they've protected the site. He sees the spike. He's waiting for someone to go pick it up. Curry going for his own lockdown, but Last still gets another kill. And during all of this, where is Uran? He's going to get behind him and get the kill and take out the lockdown as well. Since we didn't have a chance to talk about that, let's see how that happened. All right, they start shifting over. He's trying to go through here, and then they realize, okay, High Tide plus lockdown. I'm gonna buy time here, and also they're worried that it could be a rotate over. So Uran decides, okay, I'm gonna check to see if they rotate back out. They realize with the spike dropped, it's not going to happen. Killjoy was already in the site because the kills happened, so Uran's able to walk by the alarm bot for free, and then he's able to get them from behind. But Uran's timings, you know, just to go for the flank, go for the lurks, things like this, have been very, very good, and it's so promising and refreshing to see from Zeta Division. Last but not least, perhaps the favorite clip for a lot of Zeta fans from this event. Let's just take it in, all right? Zeta, they're on an eco. They have a hero Vandal, but they're on an eco. And they take over B, they get the plant. They're not able to really push out from anywhere because they've just set up the cascade and the toxic screen. They set up a circular High Tide to make sure they can reposition in the site. And Huron with just a quick double tap. Like, how? And that just causes so much chaos. Watch it in half speed. All right, Huron's positioning himself. He's waiting to see if anyone creeps out of the High Tide. He's trying to make sure he doesn't get flashed here, all right? So he's just prepping for the counter flash. And then he just swings back. He sees the gun barrel of Sky. Okay? I mean, there's so many layers to this. He sees it, and then instead of going for the unsure kill, because he knows this person can't see him yet, he immediately swings on the guy who's peeking out, but he is slowed, right? Curry is slowed. Gets that kill. And then he's keeping an eye and missed all of that on where the Sky is and gets the double tap. And that's half speed. They've got some really talented players on their roster, okay? I mean, yeah, it's just one map, it's just one game, it's just one event. But the fact that these players are willing to go for these types of shots, the fact that they're willing to believe that they can get the double, and the fact that they can do it, maybe not every day, but they can, means that should Zeta fall behind, they should be much more competitive in being able to catch back up. It's things like this that will keep Zeta much closer to the competition in the coming year. Last but not least, and there's multiple examples of this actually throughout the event. And perhaps it was just the vibe of the event, but I hope they keep this. And I want to believe it's actually a big part of the new players that joined their roster. Is watch this. They eventually lose this Lotus, but Sugar Zero gets a great clutch here. And look at Sugar Zero taunting across the sea. We've rarely seen Sugar Zero with that kind of emotion. Look at this guy. He's confidently taunting them. You know, fist bumping. And this is Uran. He's been hyping up his teammates the entire event. That type of energy is what you want to see. It's what you want to see. It's something that they've been missing for a very long time. And now with Uran and Huron, I think it's excellent. I think Kaede also helped a lot with that as well. But if Uran and Huron can keep up the vibe, if they can get Sugar Zero to start to, you know, have some confident moments on stage, Laz has always been the one who's trying to bring up the mental of the team. I think this team is going to be very promising. I do think, you know, from what my speculation was when the roster was announced, I do think, yes, Uran is a little bit shakier than Huron, but that's no surprise. Huron did play a full year of Challengers over in Fennel, whereas Uran did not. He was still on the Academy roster, just going through scrims here and there. So it's no surprise Uran has the least experience on this roster. Hopefully with time that changes, but he's willing to, again, we saw that Viper's Pit on Bind, right? He's going for these plays that are playing to win rather than playing to not lose. So that's promising to see. I think when he's had his moments, his aim was fairly promising as well. It just seems like he has some shaky moments. On top of that, we see that they're already getting him set up to play other roles and other agents other than Viper. Also very promising, because now it opens up Sugar Zero to still be that main controller, Depp to be the main duelist, Lance to be the main sentinel, and they can now flex around. And Huron and Huron are young enough that if they can learn at this rate, they should continue to expand the Asian pool and composition pool for Zeta Division. All in all, while we've only seen, 5 maps from Zeta Division at Red Bull Homegrounds, we did see an extra map against Fnatic, which they did lose. It was on Lotus. But overall, I would say it's very promising. It is just one event. I'm not going to get ahead of myself and say, like, Zeta Division could be top 3 in Pacific. I don't think they're there yet. However, I think now if you're a fan of Zeta Division, it's worth cheering for that. And this sounds brutal, but before I would have been like, I don't know, man. Like, that's some crazy amount of hopium that you're going for here, to the level that it's like never before seen levels of copium. But now I'd be like, no, on a good day they could. On a good day they could. I think it's still unlikely. I think top 3 is still going to be very difficult, especially because so many teams have upgraded going into 2024. But at the very least, I think their matches are going to be competitive again. I think it's going to be competitive again, and I think the direction they're going in, where they're much more fluid, they're willing to take some risky rounds, they're willing to switch up their defaults, right? They're willing to proactively get information, which they almost never did in 2023, are all really, really good signs for this roster. So, if you're a fan of Zeta Division, if you've been waiting for that fairy tale run to happen again, maybe 2024 is it. Maybe it has to be an even-numbered year, who knows? But hopefully that's something you can cheer for. Hopefully that's something you're looking forward to. If you did watch the event, let me know down in the comments below what you thought. Or if not, just seeing these clips, do you agree with me? Do you think that this roster looks a lot more promising? Because personally, I do. But if you don't, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments below if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to please leave a like and also subscribe to the channel. We'll return with more looks at VCT Pacific teams as more off-season events happen in the future. That's it for now, and I'll see you all next time.